Hi there, beloved. Thought of something. Wanted to share quickly. So, my intention for sharing this story with you is to open up the possibility for you to discover what your superpowers are. And I want to hear in the comments below this video what you know are your superpowers, or what you feel, what you sense. We all have superpowers, and we all have this unique gift and way of showing up in the world that no one else will ever be. And even if a billion other people do what you, quote, do, they're never going to do it like you, with the essence and the understanding and the perspectives and the wisdom that you carry. So, when I was 3 years old, maybe some of you have heard the story already, but I want to share the story because it gives some perspective on maybe a sensationalized, like not so normal kind of story about superpowers. But I just wonder if by me telling the story to you, that it will awaken or highlight some things in your life that you have experienced that you didn't think were special or whatever, just like I didn't think this event was special. So when I was 3 years old, I was sitting on, my little railroad tie front yard, waiting for my grandpa, who was driving a Borden's ice cream truck. Every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, he would show up and deliver me an ice cream treat. And so I was waiting outside. My mom was inside, and there was this great big huge picture window right above me. So my mom felt safe for me to be outside by myself, and I did this every Wednesday. And all of a sudden, I see this, I'm just sitting and like, wow, like, look at this amazing sky, right? Oh, these amazing trees, this amazing life that we're in. Are you awake to it? Let's wake up more to it. Let's savor the appreciation of this glorious life, this nature, this earth mama. So gorgeous. Oh my gosh, and just as I look up, I'm seeing the fingernail moon. And as I'm sitting there, I'm just in that space of just like this. Like, it's wild, innocent wonder. It's wild, innocent childhood magic. And that part of you still lives, just like it does in me. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I notice, sort of in this diffused state of awareness, like it was just kind of a glowing state of awareness, this deer is like hobbling towards me, and she's moving with quite a bit of debris hanging out of her and behind her. And I'm sitting there cross-legged in my normal seating position. I think I was born in lotus position. And this deer just instantly felt my immense love for her. And she laid her body down right in front of me. And as I looked at her, I saw she was covered in blood, and she had intestines that were hanging out of her body. Like, her abdomen was open, it was severed, and intestines had fallen out. And, it's like these stringy things, and I'm just looking at her, and I didn't see the problem, right? When I looked at her, I was like, oh, my love. Oh, my love. Precious love. And I just closed my eyes, and she laid in such a way that she put her legs on either side of me, and her abdomen was like right in front of me. And so I just put my hands right on her abdomen, and I just loved her. That was it. I just loved her. And, when I opened up my eyes, I don't know how long it was in time. Who does time anyway these days? I knew that something was like, completely different, because when I opened up my eyes, I was covered in blood, and she was like clean, like totally clean. There was no blood on her, and her entire abdomen was back together. Everything was back in its place. And also I noticed, really interestingly, that she had had a baby, and her little baby Bambi was snuggled up against her back as I was doing this for her mother. And then I also noticed off to the right was a bunny, like a bunny rabbit that had just come and laid and was like, kind of curled up in her little ball, witnessing all of this in the magic. And I share, and of course then then comes like the challenging part, right, where my mom had been watching all of this through the picture window and had been frightened to death. And my mom was a lifetime nurse, right? So her perspective of this was, oh my God, if that deer is startled in any way, it's gonna kill my daughter, right? So she's totally panicked. My mom suffered from anxiety her whole entire life, and this experience was like, another anxiety-inducing experience for her. This wasn't something to celebrate. This wasn't something to, to like go, wow, she can do some interesting stuff, right? From my perspective, I didn't know that this wasn't normal. I didn't know that everyone didn't do this. It was so natural. And it was so foreign to me, my mom's response. She came out after the deer was a safe distance away from me. She came out and immediately turned on the hose and was just hosing me down with force, with this garden hose, and screaming at me. She ripped all my clothes off in the front yard, and she carried me into the house and put me in the shower and was still screaming at me, telling me that I don't have any idea what can happen, with these wild animals, and that they carry all these diseases, and I could have died. And that was like the first moment of my life that I felt this experience of, I am just so different. Like, I don't know if anybody could ever get me, and I don't know if I'll, like, it was this feeling of, I just don't know where I belong. Like, where are the people who know what I am, right? It was so lonely. It was so lonely. And I remember, when I was a little girl, I used to say this phrase like so often that when I turned 16 and I got my first car, my dad put it on my license plate. And I would always walk up to my mom and dad and I would say, about me, like, what about me? What about me? Because I never felt like they got me, they saw me, they understood me. It was this experience of, all I wanted was this deep sense of like communion and connection and love, and that was like, that was not the operating system of my family. It was so different. And and years later, we've all talked about this far before the time that they've passed. And what was really interesting is when I was 16, they put "Bout Me" on my license plate, BOUT-ME. And it was so funny because everybody thought it was about fighting, like a bout, like a match or something. But it was about, what about me? Like, what about that part of me that is seeking this level of connection that just isn't available? It just is not a living, breathing thing with my family. So, so it was kind of like after that experience, I wanted to hide that part of myself because I didn't want to be rejected anymore. I didn't want to be shunned. I didn't want to be, made out to be wrong for my innate ability, my gift from God to help other beings who are suffering and in pain. It's just something that I've always had. So, like, I was left wondering, right, from this whole experience, am I lovable? Am I okay, right? And then I'll tell you another story, many stories actually, of when when I would speak to what my parents would call my imaginary friends, but they were not imaginary. And we went on journeys together and had magic happen. But with this, what I really want to hear from you is like, what is it that you have this innate knowingness about that you might not think is special at all? You know, that you might think is just so like inconsequential or insignificant. But there's something about you that is your superpower, whether it's how you see things, how you understand people, how you intuit things, how you know that you know that you know, how you can, you know, understand things that other people do not. There is a superpower, a magic that is your gift to live in this life. And that's what I want to see. That's what I want to help bring out for you. And in fact, when I do the work that I do, it's not really me doing it. It's opening up the possibilities that exist within your spirit. And as those potentials start to like shine into your essence, that's when the constellations in your soul, which are the programs that you were born with, that you actually chose. So this is not, you know, you're no victim here, beloved. You're not a victim. This happened because you chose to heal this soul that you came into. And that's what this life is about. It's about healing the soul. And so as you came into this embodiment and this existence, what you did was you chose a soul that was like, you know, filled with supreme challenges, which I call soul constellations. And by the way, most people think that, you know, your childhood sets up your wounding for your lifetime, and I call that ridiculous, because what I understand is that the soul constellations actually have already pre-programmed your childhood. All of the wounding, all of the crazies, all of the stuff that you find yourself still dealing with, right, in your whatever age you are, that stuff is real. And also just as real is that spirit part of you that is infinite, that gives rise to the magic that you have, even in the midst of all the wounding. So I'm just sharing this with you, and obviously I'm finished because I'm being loaded with cats and dogs and children. Hi, at this moment, and we're so I want to hear in the comments below from you. Number one, what are your superpowers? And if you don't know, I want you to ask people, okay? Ask people who know you and love you and trust you. Ask them. And I also want to hear from you what your experience of my superpowers is for you. I want to hear that so much. It would like totally make my day to hear that from you. Okay, I send you love and blessings.